Ross Perot's giant sucking sound, an economic reassessment of NAFTA after 3 decades. In the October 1992 presidential debate in Richmond, Virginia, independent candidate H. Ross Perot warned that the proposed North American Free Trade Agreement would generate a giant sucking sound as U.S. manufacturing jobs relocated to Mexico in pursuit of lower wages. At the time, most professional economists and policymakers dismissed the claim as overstated mercantilism. More than 3 decades later, the record shows Perot identified real adjustment frictions and distributional consequences that standard trade models often underemphasize, even while the aggregate effects proved smaller than his most dramatic forecasts. And the largest subsequent pressures on U.S. manufacturing came from other sources. Theoretical framework. Standard trade theory, rooted in comparative advantage, predicts that lowering barriers between countries with different factor endowments raises overall welfare through specialization, lower consumer prices, and expanded export opportunities. NAFTA, implemented in 1994, eliminated most tariffs among the United States, Canada, and Mexico, and deepened supply chain integration, particularly in autos, electronics, and apparel. In a Heckscher-Ohlin, or specific factors framework, import competing sectors using relatively scarce factors, less skilled labor, in the U.S. case, face downward pressure on wages or employment, while export-oriented and downstream sectors gain. These models also highlight short-run adjustment costs, frictions in labor mobility, skill mismatches, and regional concentration that can produce prolonged, localized pain, even when long-run aggregate gains exist. Perot's critique focused precisely on these adjustment costs and the political economy risk that concentrated losses would be ignored, while diffuse gains accrued to consumers and exporters. He was less concerned with net national welfare than with the visible hollowing out of specific industrial communities. Empirical record on trade flows and deficits. Bilateral goods trade with Mexico expanded sharply after NAFTA. U.S. imports from Mexico rose from roughly balanced or small surplus levels pre-1994 to consistent and growing deficits. By the mid-2020s, the annual goods deficit with Mexico reached levels exceeding $150 billion in several recent years, with monthly import peaks above $50 billion. Much of this trade, however, reflects integrated North American supply chains rather than simple one-way displacement. U.S. components and capital equipment are often re-exported after Mexican assembly. Economists therefore caution against equating bilateral deficits with net welfare losses. The relevant metric is the overall terms of trade and domestic resource reallocation, employment and manufacturing outcomes. Manufacturing employment in the United States had already begun a long secular decline from its 1979 peak, driven by productivity growth that allowed fewer workers to produce more output. Post-NAFTA, the sector continued to shed jobs, with estimates of NAFTA attributable displacement in the low hundreds of thousands over the first decade, according to some labor-oriented analyses, concentrated in textiles, apparel, electronics, and certain auto-related industries. Other assessments, including those from government trade agencies, find more modest net effects once export gains and supply chain complementarities are included. U.S. manufacturing employment actually rose by several 100,000 in the late 1990s, before the sharper post-2000 drop. The larger sucking sound materialized after China's 2001 WTO accession. Research on the China shock documents roughly 2 million U.S. manufacturing jobs displaced between 1999 and 2011, an order of magnitude larger than most NAFTA-specific estimates, and concentrated in the same regions Perot highlighted. Automation and capital labor substitution explain the majority of longer-run manufacturing employment decline. Studies consistently attribute the bulk of job losses since the 1980s to productivity improvements rather than trade alone. Distributional consequences and adjustment costs, where Perot's warning retains force, is in the recognition of heterogeneous effects. Trade liberalization generates winners and losers. Import competing workers in specific locales experienced earnings losses, reduced labor force participation, and slower re-employment patterns, consistent with models featuring labor market frictions and imperfect mobility. These costs were not fully offset by trade adjustment assistance programs, which have historically been underfunded relative to the scale of dislocation. Meanwhile, consumers benefited from lower prices on imported and import-competing goods, and export-oriented or multinational firms expanded. The net welfare gain from NAFTA itself is generally estimated in the low single-digit percentages of GDP by computable general equilibrium models. Modest but positive, once dynamic productivity and variety effects are included. National debt growth, another Perot concern, is primarily a fiscal phenomenon driven by spending and revenue decisions rather than trade balances. Persistent current account deficits reflect capital inflows attracted by U.S. assets and productivity. They are not automatically evidence of deindustrialization or policy failure. Policy lessons. The episode illustrates a central tension in open economy macroeconomics and political economy. Aggregate efficiency gains from trade liberalization coexist with concentrated, politically salient losses that markets do not automatically smooth. Professional analysis therefore emphasizes complementary domestic policies, portable benefits, retraining, regional development, and education investment, rather than protectionism, whose costs, higher input prices, retaliation, and deadweight loss, are also well documented. The subsequent renegotiation into USMCA and later tariff episodes reflect ongoing political pressure to address exactly the adjustment frictions Perot foregrounded, even if the primary drivers of manufacturing employment decline shifted over time. Conclusion. Ross Perot was neither wholly right nor wholly wrong. He correctly anticipated that NAFTA would accelerate certain job shifts and that the political system would underweight the pain borne by specific workers and communities. He overstated the scale of the immediate sucking sound from Mexico and underappreciated the larger roles of technological change and subsequent trade liberalization with China. A professional economic assessment therefore treats his intervention as a useful corrective to overly sanguine models that focus solely on net welfare while neglecting transition costs and distributional incidents. The proper policy response is not to reject trade integration, but to pair it with more effective mechanisms for sharing gains and easing adjustment, precisely the dimension Perot forced onto the national agenda 3 decades ago. This style of essay prioritizes theoretical grounding, empirical nuance, and acknowledgement of both efficiency gains and real frictions. It avoids polemic while taking the political economy dimension seriously, the hallmark of careful applied work on trade policy.